they'll be able to kind of update the resources that are already there and delete them or add new ones. And yeah, that's kind of where things are at right now. We have lots of filters. So I guess that's we haven't had any resources for that category, but we have kind of like fun navigation tools as well. And now maybe we can have some of our members speak about what they worked on and their experience. Let's see. So could Jennifer start us off?
Yeah. So I was the designer for this team. So I was designing all the components and the pages and different flows. The main focus, design priority for this website, was to make it accessible and as intuitive to use, especially for users that aren't tech savvy. And the whole experience for me was great, to be able to go back and forth with the client and improve the design. And it was really rewarding to be able to see everything come to life. Yeah.
Emma, could you speak on your experience?
Yeah, hi, I'm Emma, and I worked on the front end. And I just really enjoyed, this is my first big project, getting to work in a big team, so that was very fun. I did a lot more recently with displaying all the posts, I guess, depending on how it's filtered, so whether or not you've searched for something or clicked on a certain tag. Yeah, and it was just a lot of fun to learn web development and gain experience with React and JavaScript and all of that.
Max, could you also give your experience?
I worked on the back end. In the first semester, I worked on Heroku deployment and CSV inputs. This semester, I'm working on posts, so featured posts, sorting by featured posts and related tags.
Yeah, sounds good. That's mostly a short presentation. If anyone has any questions, well, this is a great time to ask them.
If no one else has anything else, I'm just curious, what do you think went well for you guys, or if you would rather answer any challenge you faced that was particularly hard to overcome?
Do you guys have any thoughts? I have lots of thoughts about challenges. If our members don't have any.
I hated doing CSV inputs. That was horrible.
Right. Setting up an endpoint for bulk uploading posts through CSV files. Yeah, that's pretty tedious. I found that there are a lot of kind of COVID related issues, not getting to work in person, or I don't know, having to go through everything through Zoom, and I don't know, you don't really get as much of a team experience, I feel to not see each other and to have little side conversations amongst the work sessions. So I think it was, that was a little tricky, but I think we still kind of made it out the end.
Thanks. I'm gonna head out. Love the energy though. Awesome job.
Great. Thanks everyone for coming to our presentation. And I think now we're getting new people into.
Well, thank you, people who are in our previous group. Hello to people in our new group. I hope you've all been enjoying all of the other presentations. Give it 10 more seconds. I've been saying 30, but
I like JavaScript or React or anything like that beforehand. So yeah, I'd say my experience was pretty positive. I learned a lot.
Talk a little bit about what RIA is and does, what we have created for them. I'll run through a speedy demo of our web app, and then I will hand it off to 3 members of the RIA team that are also here. You can hear about their experiences, which will probably be more interesting than what I have to say. So what does RIA do? RIA is a nonprofit that provides community-based resources for people who have experience in the commercial sex trade. So what that means is these are people who are currently involved in the process of leaving or have already left the commercial sex trade. And it's generally a population that just has kind of this horrible lack of resources. So what we have tried to do is consolidate all of these things that RIA offers or knows about into one place, one secure portal. So these could be anything from emergency shelters to education to legal services to parenting and childcare. And we basically put them all in one place so that RIA's participants can really just find these and have them be really easily accessible. So without further ado, on to our quick little demo. So this is really a two-sided app, the two sides being one for the participants who see and need the resources, one being for the admin who can manage the users and the resources. So here we have our kind of quick overview. This is the admin side, where you can see all of the users. This is obviously all test data. We're not exposing anyone here. You can manage all of the resources, and you can maybe go through, and if you wanted to edit something, you could edit something. If you wanted to delete something because maybe this resource is no longer available, you can get rid of it. You could go create a new one, go edit this, etc., etc. Just to super quickly show the other side of things, we can go log in as a participant instead, and say I really wanted wellness resources. And I found this one that I think is really applicable, really helpful. Then I can kind of just favorite it, and then it is saved for quick access on our homepage. That is really the 30-second snapshot of our app. There are other things that we didn't include for time's sake, but you get the idea. And with that, I will hand it over to the team so that you can hear from them.
Hey everyone, my name is Jackie, and I'm a front-end developer. And what I worked on was a nav bar and on the resource pages, like the edit resource page that Becca showed. Something that I found challenging was integrating the backend to the front end. I had like a lot of hiccups along the way, but I did get to learn a lot more about like, the backend and how it's structured. So it's been like a really great learning experience for me.
Hey guys, I'm Brian. I'm a backend developer. I mostly worked on the user routes for our app. So like the authentication, creating users, deleting users. The biggest challenge that I faced with this project was like going from a synchronous, like C, all those languages to an asynchronous environment. So it kind of just took a different thought approach and a different style of programming that wasn't as sequential.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrea, and I worked on the backend. So I did some of the routes like deleting users or editing the favorites. So this is my first time working on a web development project of this scale. So it has been like a really steep learning curve, but overall I had a great time and I learned a lot. And in the future, I think that this is something that I want to keep trying out for myself.
So now that you've heard from us, I will hand it off if anyone has any questions, thoughts, answers, comments, anything. We'd love to hear from you.
First off, awesome job, guys. This was really cool to see. And I know your client is very happy because I have talked to her earlier. But one question I have that I've been asking every team is if there was something you encountered while developing that was more of a curveball in terms of something that like you didn't expect to come up or had to adapt around in terms of you thought you were going to do something this way and it turned out you had to do it another way, or anything that comes to mind.
Any of y'all want to answer that?
Yeah, I can go first. So like for me, so I was tasked with like making like the create resource page, and afterwards I had to make like an edit resource page, which is really similar. And there was like this one component, like there's an hours input that we had to make from scratch. And like that gave me a really hard time because I didn't account for the fact that the user might want to like change the hours input later on. So like that was a big learning curve for me, and like it really showed me like it's really important to like design first well, and overall like I'm really happy with like how it turned out afterwards.
anyone else want to add on? Otherwise, I'll literally just show off the hours component Jackie's talking about because it's pretty cool. All right, in case anyone was curious, here's this monster of an hours widget. This is just the create version. It's not the edit version because I didn't know off the top of my head what would create it, but I don't know. This thing is just, it's cool. It's fun to play with. Okay, you get the idea. I just wanted to go brag on Jackie's behalf for a sec. I'm trying to think of exciting. I think it wasn't exactly a curveball, but we are like text message integration, I think has been a monster. Brian has been taking the lead on it and he's been amazing about it. But I think that was just like something totally new that none of us had ever worked with before. It wasn't exactly a curveball, but it was definitely a big new thing that we probably started a little later than we maybe should have, which has been cool to deal with. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all. No, I'm bragging on your behalf as well. Ray, I will brag on your behalf as well. You're also amazing. You've been killing it.
The text message stuff was really cool. The annoying part of it was that there was not much documentation online. Like they had a few examples. So if you were trying to do anything outside of that or like expand upon it, it was kind of confusing. So you got to do a deep dive of all the resources and stuff they had. But it was a great experience learning.
Brian, I'm curious, what's like what do you guys use for text message integration, and then like what would trigger a text message, for example?
Yeah, so what we do is we use a service called Twilio, which made it super, like the actual code for it was simple. It was just figuring out what the code actually was. Mm-hmm. And so what happens are we have admin create user accounts, and when they create an account, they are given like a default password. And with the number that they provide to create the account, we send them a text message with like a custom hex link that they can go to that page and then reset their account password. So it's like a two-factor authentication style, just where since they have to reset the password at that link, we're at least then somewhat confident that the number that they provided is accurate.
It's great. Thanks. Good, awesome work, guys.
Thanks, Theo. Thank you all for listening. Hop on to
great people, you know. You get to work with Theo, Genki, Rujen, you know, these are like great, humble, hardworking people. It's definitely nice. And the client was also super nice. Apparently like the director of the Groundhog Automobile also graduated from Tufts. So like just like working with great
to settle in before I start. Okay, I think we can get started here. So hello everyone, welcome to our project's breakout room. My name is Tatapa, I go by Pun Pun. We have our tech lead here, Jackie, and the rest of our teams, Abe, Yichun, Kieran, Emily, Irina, Sophia, Ryan, and Alec. We are the More Than Words project, and we worked on building a mobile application this semester, or this entire year. So let me start off by introducing our client, More Than Words. They are a Boston-based nonprofit social enterprise aimed at, empowering underprivileged youth. So these are kids who were either involved in the court system or might have dropped out of school, etc. And they help them take charge of their lives through taking charge of the business that the organization owns, which is a bookstore in downtown Boston, pictured below. And they achieve this by, putting the young adults through their paid mentorship program. So these young adults get paid to get mentorship and move up the ladder of, working at this bookstore. So think of the program as like, there's a set list of responsibilities and expectations. It's essentially a list of tasks. And we as a Jumbo Code team were tasked to build a mobile application to help these young adults track their progress. So every young adult has their own login, their own account. They can see which tasks they've done, check them off, view their manager's approval versus unapproved tasks, and see how far they have until they can move to the next tier of the program and eventually graduate. real quick here, our team worked using the Agile framework where everything was done in sprints. Every sprint lasted 2 weeks. We start off every sprint with sprint planning, where members get to volunteer for the tickets they want to work on, whichever one interests them most. And then they work on those during our 4 coding sessions per sprint. And then they submit code for Jackie and I to review, and it gets merged into, production, and then they demo to the client to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. And with that, I'll pass it on to Jackie.
So I'm just going to mention briefly some of our choices in terms of front end, back end, things like that. For the front end, the client really wanted the app to be accessible to both Android and Apple users. So we decided to go with React Native because it lends really well for cross-platform development. For the back end, we decided to use Flask because it's pretty simple and easy to learn. And since it's done in Python, even if you have little to no app development experience, it's really easy to pick up. For Salesforce, this was a client-based decision because they were the ones who chose to migrate their company data to Salesforce. And Salesforce kind of gives us and gives them a client-friendly platform where they can put their information, and it's all in one place, and it's secure, and it's relatively easy to use because it has a lot of GUI. So if you're not technically inclined, that's okay, because it's supposed to be good for that. Salesforce kind of eliminated the need for our app to have a database because all the information is already stored in Salesforce. So we decided it would be simpler and probably more secure to store all of the information in Salesforce. And every time we needed information, like when the app loaded up, we would just query Salesforce. And this makes it easy for us to have the most up-to-date information every time if the client ever decides they wanted to change some information that's in Salesforce. Our backend right now is deployed on Heroku, so our app is also deployed on the iOS the testing platform for Apple. So every time someone uses our app for testing, it hits our Heroku backend. And authentication is done via Auth0, which we'll talk about in the next slide.
I wanted to talk a little about the features. The first one being authentication. We use Auth0 to handle all of our authentication within the application. And one important thing to note is that only users who are already registered with the More Than Words program can use our application. So we check in our authentication to see whether they're entered in the Salesforce database, and then if they are, then they're allowed to create an account. Otherwise, they have to gain access or they're not able to use that. And then Pun touched earlier about the 3 tiers. And so trainee, associate, and partner pods are kind of the 3 tiers that they have as part of this program. And so our home page allows them to kind of see which pod they're at and gray out the future ones. And so a lot of the work that we did here was to make sure that each user had the correct navigation as to which pod they're in, where they're going. And again, this was done using React Native on the front end. In terms of the pod screen for each of those tiers, there are 3 pods in terms of career exploration, competency, and life essentials. And so for each of these, sub tiers, a youth must complete all of the outcomes in each pod. And so you can see here we pulled data from Salesforce, and we were able to tell the youth how many of the tasks they had completed and then how many more were to go in terms of each category. And so that was also a lot of the work that we did on this page. Lastly, we have this outcome screen. And so here the users and the youth can specifically see which tasks they had missed and which ones they still need to do to complete, a certain tier or get closer to the next the next tier for their graduation through the program. And so again, we were able to get data from Salesforce and update which tasks they had completed. The nice thing about this is that if More Than Words managers and More Than Words staff kind of change which ones users have done, it'll automatically update within the app. And so, and then the front end work for this was the accordion list where you can kind of hide and show the different tasks as needed. And I think that is most of what we have for the presentation, but definitely open to any questions that anybody may have.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening to our presentation. We're open to questions until whenever we have to move on to the next breakout room.
I'm curious about your choice to use something like Auth0. Kind of why do you decide to go with that? Like, what benefits did it give you? And yeah, just your experience working with that.
I think really quickly, mostly because authentication is like really important, and like security is still a relatively new field, and it's hard to have someone with a lot of experience in security. So Auth0 is a third party framework kind of that we can build directly on top of ours, and their documentation may be a little sketchy, like not sketchy, just not well documented. So it's a little harder to use, but I think like it's the most secure choice in terms of like if you're not someone who's super secure, like security focused, like with like password hashing and all of that is like, I feel like that's a very niche group, and it's hard to have someone who's an undergrad who's, the app is being used by real people too. So
awesome. Thank you.
About the sustained regeneration, improvement, and management of the physical environment through the development of community-based partnerships to empower local people and businesses' overall well-being. And basically the aspect of this nonprofit we worked with is to digitize their process of ordering farm produce and like distributing it to the mobile market and like selling merchandise to the general public. So it's kind of like a multifunctional website that centers around like e-commerce. But yeah, as it says here, we took care of manual record keeping and merchandise sales. This is our team. These are all the developers, and I was the designer. And move on. Basically, this is like the landing page where anyone, like the general public, can browse merchandise. Add things to their cart, search for certain items, filter, and then once they're ready, they can check out. Here's also just like an info page on how kind of Groundworks operates in terms of picking up their items and buying it, because I think they operate via PayPal and Venmo and not credit card. And then our other user is like the mobile market. I believe I'm not wrong. It is. Yeah, mobile market.
Hey Angela, while you're going, I'm happy to like jump in and add some things.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So like as Angela was talking about, basically there's kind of like two aspects to our app. There's the general public who can like order produce. There's also the admin side, but then like the mobile market's the big thing, and it's actually a pretty cool service. Basically, mobile market is a service that delivers affordable fresh produce throughout the Somerville area. Like you could see them riding bicycles in vans, and basically they have locations throughout Somerville, and people can stop by their locations to receive fresh produce, which I think is super cool. When I heard about Groundwork Somerville, like one of my greatest passions is the environment. And initially I thought like we'd be able to do some work with them, like a little groundwork with them, maybe visiting their sites. COVID happened, we couldn't, but it's just really cool to like work towards that mission, helping people get fresh produce. And then, yeah, like we really try to tailor our site to like making it usable, friendly, simple. Our designers like did a cool job of like making these components like reusable. And I don't know, Angela, did you talk yet about kind of how our project shifted?
Yeah, basically, initially, our clients wanted to have the public be able to buy all the fruits and vegetables. So everything was basically set. There was like a design for the public to buy these, like all this produce and everything. But then in the middle, they kind of just said, oh, we only want the mobile market to be able to buy the produce, and for the general public to actually buy merchandise. And merchandise was never something that they mentioned before. And at this stage, though, like the designs are basically finalized. So I think the whole team had to just take a step back and like reevaluate the design, both technically and aesthetically, in terms of aesthetics. So that was
Yeah.
one of the things we faced.
One thing that's nice though, if you kind of go to the homepage, like you can see,
like the merchandise.
Yeah, like merchandise, whether you're buying, and then could you also log in as mobile market? But like these components are like pretty reusable, which is nice. Like something like anyone should focus on when they're building out a front end, a back end is like making things reusable. It's like whether people are buying merchandise or fruits or vegetables, like it's, building the components should be very similar because we're just like purchasing and then building models. So I think that's something that helped us kind of move forward. But like we've been talking a lot. Love to hear if anyone in the audience has some questions. Anything?
We also have another user, and that's like the Groundworks admin. And basically they kind of are in charge of the inventory and overseeing like the amount of produce they have, as well as other relevant statistics. So they have like 3 basic inventories, and one is the harvest, the other is the merchandise, and then there's produce, which has nothing in it at the moment. But basically the difference between harvest and produce is that produce kinds of tracks like the types of vegetables that they can offer and have offered in the past, as well as like their descriptions and the pictures, and harvest are kind of track what's available at the moment. Yeah, and basically we have a search function, date viewing, can sort in these orders. We haven't fully implemented all of these, but I think you can get the basic gist of the functionality and everything. You can add another user as an admin. So for example, if another group of people like the mobile market want to buy produce from Groundworks Somerville, they can also do that through this.
Love it.
By becoming a user.
Awesome. Any other questions from our audience? Last few seconds.
What was the most challenging part of this project for each of you?
I'd say like for me, it wasn't really like maybe the work itself. I ran into issues like I was working on the back end, like uploading images. Manish helped me out with that. I was kind of stuck. But like it was mostly, I think, just pivoting when the client changed their needs. But I think we did a good job of like communicating, and Manish, the project manager, our tech leads, like we're there to help with both back end, front end, like super responsive. So like that all was really helpful for us.
Awesome, thank you. So we talked about a little bit about like the pivoting of our project. I just wanted to give a little bit of context on it. So the original idea was the farm produce were produced in excess, and instead of going it to waste, they wanted to offer it to the Somerville community. But the fact is, it's a non-profit organization, and with like limited business constraints, they couldn't they didn't have like refrigerators, and generally a food produce could last only 1 week. And just the people to come within like a day or two to grab the food items was kind of impractical, since they didn't have something to refrigerate the food items. And that's why we shifted away from food items to merchandise.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for those presentations. personally, I really, really loved every single one of them, and really appreciated the hard work that members put into building all these projects and also presenting today. I just want to say one more thing before I hand it off to your new president, Senya. But I think especially given the circumstances of this year, I was just very, very impressed by everyone's work. I mean, I know I've said that I've been here for 4 years, but these projects really do get better every single year. And to all of the PMs, to all of the members, you are setting the bar very, very, very high for next year. And I don't know how many of you will be in here or are in here, but to future PMs and to future members, you have some pretty big shoes to fill. And I think you'd be lucky to follow in the footsteps of all of the current PMs and members. So big thank you to everybody again, and Senya, take it home.
I'm just going to say, yeah, a huge thank you to everyone for coming. I know that another Zoom meeting is annoying and we're all so burnt out and done with it, but we wanted to try something new. We hope it was fun. We hope you enjoyed it, and everyone should be super, super proud of themselves. Have an awesome night, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. It was amazing.
Thank you, Donna.
Well done, everybody.
See y'all next year.